Discipline. It's a word we hear often, sometimes whispered with dread, sometimes shouted with glory. We all know we need it. We admire those who have it. Yet, when it comes to our own lives, we often find ourselves struggling to hold on to it. We plan, we commit, we dream, but then somewhere along the way we fall short. We let things slide. We tell ourselves just this once. And before we know it, we're back at square one. So today, I want to talk not just about discipline as a concept, but how to force yourself to be disciplined, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Let's start with the truth. You are not always going to be motivated. You are not always going to wake up energized, eager to follow through on your goals, or ready to push past temptation. In fact, the more ambitious your goals are, the more resistance you're going to feel. That's not a flaw. That's just reality. And discipline is the weapon you use to fight back against that resistance. It's the tool you reach for when motivation runs out. It's the bridge between who you are now and who you want to become. So how do you force yourself to be disciplined? First, you have to stop waiting to feel like it. Feelings are fleeting. They're weather systems passing through your mind. If you rely on how you feel to determine what you do, you'll always be at the mercy of your emotions. Discipline, real discipline, begins when you act in direct opposition to your feelings. It's when you get out of bed even though every cell in your body says stay. It's when you say no to distraction even though your brain is screaming for it. It's not glamorous. It doesn't always feel good, but this is where strength is forged. Now, this doesn't mean becoming robotic or ignoring your limits. It means understanding that your mind has two voices, the one that's driven by comfort and the one that's driven by conviction. Most people obey the first voice without question. They obey the voice that says, sleep in, eat the junk, scroll a little more. You can start tomorrow. If you want to be disciplined, you have to learn to silence that voice. Or better yet, ignore it. Because it's always going to be there. The voice of comfort is loud, but it's not wise. The voice of discipline, on the other hand, is often quiet, but it's always right. So how do you strengthen that voice? Through practice, through repetition, through small acts of defiance against your lesser impulses. Start small. Wake up when your alarm goes off. No snoozing. Make your bed every morning. Eat clean for just one day. Work out even when you don't feel like it. Show up on time. Finish that one task you've been putting off. Every time you do something that your lazy self didn't want to do, you reinforce the identity of someone who follows through. That's how discipline becomes who you are. But let's be honest. Knowing what to do and doing it are two very different things. We all know we should exercise. We all know we should focus. So why don't we? Because discipline is painful in the short term. It's uncomfortable. And the human brain is wired to avoid discomfort. That's why you have to decide right now that your goals are more important than your comfort, that your future is more valuable than your excuses, that the pain of discipline is always better than the pain of regret. This isn't a one-time decision. It's not like flipping a switch and suddenly becoming a machine. It's a daily battle. Some days you win. Some days you lose. That's okay. The key is to never surrender. When you slip, and you will, don't let it become a pattern. Catch yourself, correct course, get back on track. Self-discipline isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. You don't need to be flawless. You just need to be relentless. Now, one of the best ways to force yourself to be disciplined is to remove choice. The more decisions you have to make, the more willpower you burn. So simplify your environment. Structure your day. Plan ahead. Don't rely on winging it. Winging it is how you end up eating junk food, skipping workouts, wasting hours online. Instead, set routines. Prepare your meals. Schedule your workouts. Turn off notifications. Lay out your clothes the night before. The less friction there is between you and a disciplined choice, the more likely you are to follow through. You also need to stop negotiating with yourself. You know what I mean. That little voice that tries to make deals. You can skip today and double up tomorrow. One cheat meal won't hurt. You've had a hard week. You deserve a break. That voice is seductive, but it's lying to you. You don't need more breaks. You need more follow-through. Discipline doesn't come from cutting yourself slack. It comes from keeping your promises, even when no one else is watching, especially when no one else is watching. Another powerful tool is accountability. It's easy to break promises to yourself. It's harder to break promises to others. So find someone you trust and tell them your goals. Check in regularly, make commitments out loud, put some skin in the game. Bet money on your consistency. Sign up for a challenge. Publicly commit to your habits. The more pressure you create, the more likely you are to show up, even when you don't want to. Pressure, when used wisely, is a gift. It forces action. It breeds results. Now, let's talk about time. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is that we don't have time. But the truth is, we all have the same 24 hours. The difference is how we use them. If you have time to scroll, you have time to read. If you have time to binge shows, you have time to build something. If you have time for excuses, you have time for action. So audit your time. Be brutally honest. Track how you spend your days. You'll be shocked by how much time is wasted on things that don't move the needle. Reclaim that time. Use it with intention. Discipline is not about having time. It's about making time. And yes, this is hard. Forcing yourself to be disciplined is hard. But do you know what's harder? Being stuck. Being mediocre, living a life full of unfulfilled potential, looking back and realizing you could have been more, done more, lived more, but you didn't because you were tired or distracted or lazy. That kind of pain lasts a lifetime. The pain of discipline, that's temporary. It stings for a moment, but then it builds, it compounds, it transforms you. Every discipline choice you make is a vote for the person you want to become. The person who doesn't quit, the person who doesn't need motivation, the person who gets things done no matter what. You don't need to be naturally gifted. You don't need to be born with iron will. You just need to decide again and again that your goals matter more than your mood. That's how you win. And let me say this clearly. You are capable of far more than you think. You have the strength to resist temptation. You have the grit to push through fatigue. You have the focus to stay locked in, but only if you stop making excuses, only if you stop selling yourself short. The moment you decide to stop being a victim of your impulses and start being the master of your behavior, that's the moment your life begins to change. If you're serious about discipline, you also need to pay attention to your mind. Your thoughts shape your actions. If you tell yourself, I can't, I'm too lazy, I've never been disciplined, then that's exactly what you'll live out. You must change your internal dialogue. Start telling yourself, I follow through, I keep my promises, I'm disciplined no matter what. Even if it feels like a lie at first, say it until it becomes real, because your identity drives your behavior, and your behavior reinforces your identity. It's a loop. Use it to your advantage. Some people will try to tell you that discipline is boring, that it means living a joyless, rigid life. Don't believe them. Discipline is freedom. Discipline is how you earn the right to live on your own terms. It's how you break free from chaos, from regret, from being a slave to your urges. Discipline gives you control. It gives you power. And with that power, you can create anything. Health, wealth, strength, mastery, peace. If you want to be someone others can count on, someone you can count on, then choose discipline. Not just when it's convenient, not just when it's easy. Choose it especially when it's hard. That's when it counts the most. That's when it builds character, and character is everything. So the next time you don't feel like showing up, show up anyway. The next time you want to quit, don't. The next time you're tempted to procrastinate, act immediately. The discipline you build today will carry you through the storms of tomorrow. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your habits, and habits are forged in. Most people wait for motivation to strike before they begin anything important. They wait to feel ready. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait until the stars align and their mood is just right. But the truth is, motivation is fleeting. It's unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. Sometimes it's there in the morning, gone by the afternoon. Sometimes it disappears for days or even weeks. If you rely on motivation to take action, you'll spend most of your life waiting instead of doing. The problem is motivation is based on emotion. It's that spark of energy you feel when you're excited about an idea or inspired by a goal. But emotions are unstable. They're affected by sleep, stress, food, weather, and countless other factors outside your control. If you're depending on something as fragile as emotion to drive your discipline, you're setting yourself up for failure. You'll be productive only when you feel like it, and let's be honest, most of the time you won't. This is why the most successful, disciplined people don't wait to feel motivated. They act in the absence of motivation. They show up, whether they're excited or exhausted. They follow their plan, whether it feels good or not. That's what separates high achievers from everyone else. They don't treat discipline as optional. They treat it as a duty. At its core, discipline is a skill, not a personality trait. And like any skill, it's developed through repetition. Every time you act without motivation, you're training yourself. You're sending a message to your mind that says, this is what we do. The more you do that, the more automatic it becomes. Eventually, you stop needing a reason to act. You just act. That's what real discipline looks like. Not passion-fueled bursts of productivity, but consistent, deliberate effort over time. And here's the twist. Discipline often creates motivation. Once you start doing the thing you were dreading, once you push past that initial resistance, momentum kicks in. You start to feel good about your effort. You begin to see progress. And progress is what sparks motivation. It works in reverse. You don't wait for motivation to act. You act and then motivation shows up. But to get there, you have to be willing to start without it. That means doing the workout even when you're tired, writing the page even when you feel uninspired, showing up to the meeting even when you'd rather stay home. You do these things not because you want to, but because you said you would, because your goals are not up for negotiation. This isn't easy, it's uncomfortable. It takes mental toughness. But every time you follow through without motivation, you grow stronger. You prove to yourself that you are not a slave to your emotions. You prove that your actions are driven by choice, not mood. And that kind of self-respect is powerful. It builds confidence, resilience, and character. So stop chasing motivation. Stop giving it the power to decide whether you move forward or stand still. Motivation is nice when it's there, but it can't be the engine. Let it be the spark, not the fuel. Your fuel needs to be something stronger, something rooted in commitment, vision, and purpose. Those things don't fade when you're tired. They don't vanish when the excitement wears off. They endure. You don't need to feel like doing it. You just need to do it. That's how you win. That's how you build a disciplined life, by refusing to wait for the right mood and choosing instead to take control. When people think about building discipline, they often imagine giant leaps, radical lifestyle changes, waking up at 5 a.m., going to the gym 7 days a week, cutting out sugar, reading a book a week, working nonstop. And while those goals may sound impressive, they're often unsustainable. The real key to lasting discipline is not in massive overhauls, but in small, consistent steps. Starting small is not weakness, it's strategy. It's how you build momentum that lasts. Think about pushing a car. If it's at a complete standstill, trying to get it moving with one massive shove is nearly impossible. But if you start with small pushes, just enough to break the inertia, it gets easier. As it begins to roll, your effort compounds, and soon you're moving with far less energy than it took to get started. The same applies to your habits. Your first efforts may feel slow, awkward, or insignificant. But over time, with repetition, you build rhythm and power. Starting small means lowering the barrier to action. If you want to develop the habit of working out, don't aim for an hour-long session right away. Start with 10 minutes. If you want to read more, don't commit to 50 pages. Start with 5. Want to wake up earlier? Don't jump from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. overnight. Start with 15 or 30-minute increments. The point isn't how much you do at first. It's that you're doing something. You're proving to yourself that you can show up. And that's where confidence is built, not in the outcome, but in the follow-through. Small actions eliminate excuses. If your goal is so small that it seems ridiculous to skip, you're more likely to follow through. And once you do, your brain registers a win. That small win becomes fuel. You feel capable. You feel in control. And when you feel in control, you're more willing to take the next step. That's how momentum begins. One small win leads to another. Action leads to more action. This is how discipline grows. Not in big dramatic gestures, but in quiet, steady movement forward. Another benefit of starting small is that it makes habits harder to break. When a habit is part of your daily rhythm, when it's so manageable that it becomes automatic, it becomes part of your identity. Missing one day feels off. The small, consistent action creates a baseline that's easy to maintain, even on bad days. And when life gets chaotic, and it will, having small, non-negotiable habits keeps you grounded. Momentum also helps you break through resistance. That internal friction, the urge to delay, to scroll, to do something easier, is strongest before you begin. Once you're in motion, that resistance starts to fade. You begin to realize that starting was the hardest part. Even a tiny push forward disrupts the inertia of procrastination. And here's the truth: big changes come from small beginnings. The person who runs marathons today once struggled to jog around the block. The writer who publishes books once stared at a blank page, unsure how to start a sentence. Everyone who is great at something began by being terrible at it, but they didn't wait to be good. They just started. Small, imperfect, but consistent. If you want discipline, stop looking for magic moments. Start looking for small actions you can repeat every day. Don't underestimate the power of 5 minutes, 10 push-ups, one healthy meal, or one focused work session. Stack those up day after day, and you'll look back one day and realize you built something massive, not all at once, but brick by brick. Momentum is your best friend. Build it slowly, protect it fiercely, feed it daily, and let your small beginnings carry you to big results. One of the biggest hidden threats to discipline isn't laziness, it's decision fatigue. Every day you make hundreds of decisions, from what to eat for breakfast to when to check your phone to whether or not to work out. Over time, each decision drains a bit of your mental energy until by the end of the day, you're more likely to give in to distractions, cravings, and excuses. The more decisions you have to make, the more willpower you burn. And when your willpower is depleted, your discipline goes with it. That's why one of the smartest ways to strengthen discipline is to eliminate as many unnecessary decisions as possible. The goal is not to limit your freedom, but to reduce mental clutter. When you reduce the number of decisions you need to make, you preserve your focus for the choices that actually matter. You free up energy for deep work, consistency, and follow-through. This is why routines are so powerful. A routine turns a decision into a default. Instead of deciding whether or not to do something, it becomes automatic. You wake up and immediately follow your morning routine, not because you feel like it, but because that's what you do. You don't debate whether to start working at 9 a.m. You've already decided that's when you begin. The fewer decisions you leave open for negotiation, the easier it becomes to stay consistent. Think about the habits of high-performing individuals. Many of them wear the same type of clothes every day, eat similar meals, and follow strict schedules. It's not because they're boring, it's because they understand the value of conserving mental energy. They've built systems that allow them to focus their decision-making power on what really matters, not on whether to hit snooze or scroll through social media before getting up. You can apply this to your own life in simple ways. Plan your meals in advance. Choose your clothes the night before. Decide your workout schedule at the beginning of the week. Set your work hours and protect them like appointments. Block off time for deep focus and eliminate distractions during that window. If you always wait until the moment to decide what to do, you're far more likely to choose what's easy instead of what's right. Technology makes this even more urgent. Every notification, every app, every social feed is a temptation disguised as a choice. Should you check that text? Scroll for 5 minutes? Watch one more video? Every yes chips away at your ability to say no later. So take back control of your environment. Turn off notifications. Remove apps you don't need. Set up website blockers. Create spaces. physical and digital, that support your discipline instead of weakening it. Discipline isn't just about what you do. It's also about what you remove. You don't need to be stronger than every temptation. You just need to stop putting yourself in positions where you're constantly tempted. Make the disciplined choice the easy one. If you want to read more, leave your book on your pillow. If you want to work out in the morning, lay out your clothes the night before. If you want to eat healthy, don't bring junk food into the house in the first place. By eliminating unnecessary decisions, you build a structure around your life. That structure doesn't trap you. It frees you. It frees you from mental chaos. It frees you from impulse. And most importantly, it frees you from the endless, exhausting task of constantly trying to choose the right thing. Instead, you do the right thing because you've already decided ahead of time. Discipline thrives in simplicity. The less you leave to chance, the more consistent you become. So streamline your life, design your environment, pre-commit to your best self, and let systems carry you when motivation runs out. One of the biggest enemies of discipline isn't the external world. It's the internal voice that tries to talk you out of doing what you said you would. It's subtle, clever, and persistent. It whispers when you're tired, when you're bored, when you're overwhelmed. It tells you things like, you deserve a break, or just skip today, you'll double up tomorrow, or it's okay, no one's watching. This is self-negotiation, and if you don't learn to silence it, it will sabotage your progress every time. Self-negotiation is the mental bargaining that happens when your lower self tries to escape discomfort. It's not that you're incapable of being disciplined. It's that you keep falling for the same mental traps. You make excuses. You convince yourself that a small slip won't matter. You tell yourself you'll start fresh next week. But every time you give in to that voice, you reinforce the idea that your commitments are flexible, that your goals are optional, that your word doesn't hold weight even to yourself. The truth is, you don't need to feel like doing something in order to do it. But when you give that internal voice a seat at the table, you open the door for hesitation, and hesitation breeds weakness. The longer you sit there thinking about whether or not to take action, the more likely you are to talk yourself out of it. That's why you need to shut down the negotiation before it begins. One powerful method is this: make your decisions in advance. Decide the night before that you're going to wake up at 6 a.m. Decide at the start of the week that you'll go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Once the decision is made, remove the option to redecide later. The time for choice has passed. Now it's just time to follow through. If you treat every decision like it's up for debate, you'll burn out. You'll argue with yourself all day. But when something is already decided, there's no space for inner conflict. You just execute. Another way to silence excuses is to stop letting yourself off the hook so easily. When that voice says, just skip it, don't respond with logic. Respond with action. Get up and go. The more you hesitate, the louder that voice becomes. But the moment you move, it begins to lose power. You can't think your way out of self-negotiation. You have to act your way out of it. Also, be aware of the language you use with yourself. Excuses often come dressed in reasonable words. You'll say things like, it's been a long day, or I'll be more focused tomorrow, or one time won't hurt. But ask yourself, if someone else made those same excuses to you over and over, would you still trust them? Probably not. So why do you let yourself get away with them? Self-discipline means treating your own promises like commitments made to someone important, because they are. When you consistently let yourself down, you start to lose trust in your own word. But when you follow through, even in small things, you build integrity. You create the identity of someone who gets things done no matter the circumstances. It's important to realize that the voice of negotiation will never completely go away. It's part of being human. But you can learn to stop entertaining it. You can learn to hear it and then ignore it. You can learn to act in spite of it. And the more you do that, the quieter it gets. Discipline doesn't mean you never feel resistance. It means you don't let resistance make decisions for you. It means you stop giving excuses the power to derail your goals. You don't argue with the lazy voice in your head. You override it immediately, without question. Your goals are not up for discussion. Your standards are not optional, and your future is far too valuable to be left in the hands of momentary weakness. Silence the voice. End the negotiation. Show up anyway. One of the most effective ways to force discipline into your life is to stop trying to rely on willpower alone and instead build a system that holds you accountable. Willpower is limited. Some days it's strong. Other days it disappears completely. But accountability and structure, those don't rely on your mood. They don't care how tired, stressed, or distracted you feel. They create a framework that demands consistency, even when you don't feel like showing up. Accountability is powerful because it shifts the weight of responsibility from being internal and private to being visible and public. When no one knows your goals, it's easy to slip. If you don't do the workout, if you skip the task, if you waste the day, who's going to call you out? Probably no one. But the moment you involve someone else, whether it's a friend, a mentor, a coach, or even an online community, you raise the stakes. You're no longer just disappointing yourself, you're letting someone else down too. That small shift can be a massive motivator. Telling someone your goals changes everything. It creates pressure. And pressure, when applied in the right way, creates performance. Think about athletes. Why do they train harder when they have a coach watching? Why do people show up more consistently when they're part of a team? Because they're being held to a standard. There are expectations. And when you know someone's going to ask, did you do what you said you'd do? You're far more likely to follow through. But accountability doesn't only come from other people. It can also come from systems you design for yourself. One way to create that internal accountability is by making your progress visible. Track your habits. Use a calendar. Check off boxes. Write down what you did every day. That simple act of recording your behavior keeps you honest. It's hard to lie to yourself when the proof or the absence of it is staring you in the face. Even better, make the stakes real. Bet money on your consistency. Use apps that fine you for skipping habits. Join a challenge where there's a consequence for missing days. When there's something on the line, your brain pays attention. You take the goal more seriously because failure now has a cost. Discipline becomes more than a preference. It becomes a requirement. Now, structure is the other side of this equation. If accountability is about who you're responsible to, structure is about how you organize your time, energy, and focus. Most people struggle with discipline not because they're lazy, but because their lives are chaotic. No routine, no systems, no boundaries. When your days are scattered and unpredictable, discipline becomes nearly impossible. You spend all your energy reacting instead of executing. Structure fixes that. It gives your actions a rhythm. It eliminates decision fatigue. It reduces temptation. When you plan your day the night before, when you time block your tasks, when you stick to a schedule, you eliminate the space where excuses usually thrive. You don't have to decide whether to work. You already blocked off the time. You don't have to wonder what to do next. It's already on the list. Structure creates flow, and flow is where discipline becomes effortless. Think of structure like a track. A train doesn't need to steer. It just follows the rails. When your life is structured, you don't have to constantly make decisions. You follow the rails you've already laid down, and when you fall off because everyone does, you don't spiral, you get back on track because the track is still there. The truth is, discipline is a lot easier when you stop trying to do it all in your head. You're human. You're going to get tired. You're going to have bad days. You're going to lose motivation. But if you've built a structure that supports your goals, and you're being held accountable whether by others or by your own systems, you don't need to rely on willpower. You've created a world where discipline is the default, not the exception. So build that world. Don't leave your goals up to chance. Surround yourself with people who will push you. Create routines that protect your time. Track your progress. Raise the stakes. And most importantly, don't wait until you feel ready. Put structure and accountability in place now, because discipline isn't something you hope for. It's something you build. Discipline often gets a bad reputation. People hear the word and immediately think of restriction, suffering, and self-denial. They imagine early mornings, rigid routines, endless effort, and zero joy. It sounds like punishment, something you have to endure rather than something you'd ever choose. But that view is not only narrow, it's wrong. Discipline isn't punishment. In fact, it's the opposite. Discipline is freedom, the kind of freedom most people will never experience because they never take control of themselves long enough to earn it. Lack of discipline feels like freedom at first. You sleep in when you want, skip workouts, eat what you crave, do what feels good in the moment. You're not following rules. You're not sacrificing. You're doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That might sound like freedom, but over time it becomes a trap because every choice has a consequence. The freedom to skip today's effort becomes the burden of tomorrow's regret. The freedom to avoid discomfort becomes the weight of unfulfilled goals. The freedom to indulge leads to the slavery of addiction, distraction, and missed potential. Real freedom isn't doing whatever feels good. Real freedom is having control. It's being the kind of person who isn't ruled by cravings, emotions, laziness, or impulses. When you're disciplined, you're in charge, not your moods, not your urges, not your environment. That's true power. Discipline means you can trust yourself. You say you'll do something and you do it. You don't need external pressure or reminders. You lead yourself. You move with purpose, not because someone's watching, but because you decided who you want to become, and you're acting in alignment with that person. Think about every area of life where excellence matters. Athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, leaders. The best in any field aren't free from discipline. They're free because of it. The disciplined athlete gets to perform at the highest level. The disciplined writer gets to publish their work. The disciplined leader earns respect and influence. None of that happens by accident. It's earned through consistent effort, deliberate choices, and a refusal to give in to the easy way out. The irony is, the more disciplined your life is, the more freedom you have, not less. When your finances are disciplined, you have the freedom to travel, invest, or take risks without fear. When your health is disciplined, you have the energy and strength to do things most people can't. When your time is disciplined, you have the space to be creative, to rest, to build things that matter. Discipline gives you options. It gives you control over your future. It gives you access to a life that isn't ruled by chaos or regret. This doesn't mean you can never rest or have fun. Quite the opposite. Discipline creates space for rest. It creates room for enjoyment. When you've done the work, when you've followed through, you can enjoy your downtime without guilt. You can take breaks knowing you earned them. You're not hiding from your responsibilities, you've handled them. That's a totally different kind of rest. That's freedom. It's time to stop seeing discipline as deprivation and start seeing it as empowerment. Every time you choose discipline, you're voting for your future self. You're building trust with yourself. You're proving that you can do hard things, that you can delay gratification, that you can rise above your feelings and do what needs to be done. That's not punishment. That's the highest form of self-respect. So reframe the way you think about discipline. It's not about what you're giving up. It's about what you're gaining. It's not about living a smaller life. It's about creating a life with more purpose, more control, and more real freedom than most people will ever know. Discipline isn't something that holds you back. It's what sets you free.